First, I want to give a little background on what we are doing at NISG. As Sanjay just mentioned, we are working with the central government. NISG is a Section 25 not-for-profit company, if some of you don't know about it. And we are involved with the many mission mode projects at a national level, including passport, immigration, visa, as well as MCA 21, one of the flagship e-governance programs at the Ministry of Company Affairs. And PDS is another area where we're involved with the Central Department of Food and Public Distribution. The project that the department has envisaged essentially is a pilot project. It is not necessarily an end-to-end solution, which I'll just mention in a minute. It is a solution that looks at from the state capital go down level up until the block level, block or mandal level, tracking of the food grains. A lot of what you have heard from the states has revolved around establishing a ration card database, has revolved around smart cards, has primarily revolved around the beneficiary. There is less work, if you will, that has been done upstream in the process. There's been some work done. Some of the states are tracking vehicles. Some of the states are tracking inventory levels, et cetera, but more work has been done down at the beneficiary level for a good reason. That is where much of the pain is felt, and therefore smart cards, et cetera, add a lot of value. This project is in 4 pilot states, which includes Delhi and AP, Assam and Chhattisgarh, and takes the e-governance down to the block level. Now, having said that, there is some rethink occurring as we speak, as this kind of scope was developed a couple of years ago, and we assisted them and went through the DPR process. And now there is some rethink in terms of actually extending it perhaps beyond the block level. The couple of points I wish to make, these are just some views that I have, not necessarily regarding the project that I just talked about. I want to go back to the use of UID in this PDS process. You heard earlier today in the session about what the UID is about and what kind of benefits it can provide, etc. I think UID for PDS has 2 very important roles that it can play. One that is more obvious, which is during the enrollment phase, to ensure that the beneficiary is unique, is identifiable, and the deduplication is avoided. That is obviously a very important part that UID can play. This leads to a more streamlined ration card database that avoids the inclusion and exclusion errors, people who should be there and who are not, and people who should not be there who are, as well as the ghost cards, the duplicate cards, and all of that. But moving beyond that, a second benefit, and this may be realized more in the long run, is the authentication of the delivery or the offtake. When the person comes in, even if, how do you verify that it is indeed the person who has been originally registered? For this, some states are already doing a lot of work, especially Andhra Pradesh, where you have the biometrics which are then matched with the locally. But if you look beyond that, ultimately it is important that we have to recognize that people do migrate. People do want the flexibility not just to go to the one FPS shop wherein they have registered and obtained the ration card, which today is still the case in many states and in many places, but rather to be able to go to any FPS shop within the block, or perhaps within the district, or perhaps within the state, or if you look even further, perhaps why not within the country? You have laborers in from Bihar and Uttar Pradesh who migrate to Delhi. You have laborers from Orissa who work on construction projects in Karnataka. So ultimately, a pan-India identifier such as the UID can facilitate that. And that is where you get that quantum leap in the benefit of that matching. We may be a little ways away from that for the simple reason what Srikant Nadamuni talked about in the UID session. They are expecting 150 million authentications per day from registrars. And that number may even be a conservative number. So can the connectivity, can the system even handle that level of authentication? Clearly, a safer, more conservative approach is to authenticate locally. So for the time being, that may be the way to go. But in the longer run, this is where ICT can play a real role, can make that pan-India coverage. Moving on from UID, another area which I think the central government is fast moving towards, and which I personally believe is very important, is this end-to-end solution that has already been alluded to by a couple of the panel members. States are doing a lot of work, in the smart card area and establishing, ration card databases, etc. So look at that chain. The first step, obviously, is to ensure that you have the correct BPL list, and then the beneficiaries are indeed the ones who have been registered for this. Now, if you move up that chain, the next step is to make sure that the right person is coming and receiving the rations. But if you move further up that chain, the amount that they're actually receiving in benefits, you want that to immediately update the prior cycle in the chain, such that the inventory levels are automatically updated, right? Moving up to the block level. Right now, on a monthly basis, FPS owners send a Form A. And anecdotally, we know that a lot of that stuff is doctored. It's not, the data there is not very reliable. Everything shows 100% offtake, when we know that is not the case. So capturing this information and automatically updating it further up the stream, such that the allocation to the FPS owner, if not in real time, is done based on that data. Moving further up from the block to the district level, there's Form B, and then further up there's Form C from the state up to the center. This data needs to flow all the way through that chain to get the true benefit of ICT. So there's various links where work has been done, but ultimately it all has to add up. And going further back up to the FCI level, up to the procurement level, so that the numbers that are generated right at the beneficiary level flow all the way back up the chain. So the center is, I think, starting to think that this is really the way to go, and they can play a role in facilitating the solution. States like AP have done a lot of work, and they're already halfway there in terms of what they're doing within the state level, but that can be extended and should be extended up the chain. So this is another area. To give you some other examples, Assam, for example, is very concerned at the FCI process. They are saying that the food grains do not reach the state capital level through the FCI process on time. And they believe there is collusion between the transport stakeholders, which may include the railways, FCI officials, etc., with the traders within the state, who deliberately see to it that it reaches late so as to have inflated prices, which ultimately benefit the traders. This is their feelings. So their concerns are in there. And not only that, their transport concerns are even within the state. Tracking is a huge issue, because not only does it go via road, but then it gets transferred to a ferry in many places. It crosses the river, gets back on a truck, and they have no idea what is getting diverted at what point. So if you go up the supply chain, or food chain, if you will, there is tremendous scope for ICT to provide tracking. There is tremendous scope to provide the kind of data that is reliable, which can then ensure that what is actually being procured. The central government does a calculation every month to arrive at the number that each state can lift for the subsequent month. That number, they don't have such a high degree of confidence even in that number, because of the lesser confidence in the data coming from downstream. So when we really look at the entire process, and you've seen all in the last month the headlines of how much food grains are rotting in warehouses, etc., in terms of the actual calculation as to what is actually needed downstream, is a very important step, and that can only come when the entire chain is automated. In addition to this, there are a couple of other things that states are doing.